YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back after the very first game of the NFL 2020 season here between the Texans and the Chiefs. Maybe not as close as I wish and thought it would be there, but still good to get back into the action there. Dominant game for the Chiefs. We're going to recap it. I'm going to have some takeaways, even though I'm a little iffy on having takeaways after just one game, but we'll have some takeaways. We'll have winners, losers, looking at the team's outlooks, going forward, what could happen, what can we expect, but highlighting some things that I noticed throughout the game mainly here. So we'll break it down. We'll do this for the Sunday slate of games on Monday as well. And we got all kinds of NFL content, predictions for each game, score predictions, power rankings, plenty more, always adding more content. Follow that Twitter. I was live tweeting. A lot of things you're going to hear me say in this video were already said on Twitter. So people that follow Twitter already saw a lot of this. So you're going to want to follow that. We'll be tweeting during Sunday games as well. We have an Instagram, podcast, Patreon, 60K subscriber goal. Please help us get there. Trying to reach that, somewhere early in the season here. So really appreciate you if you subscribe, turn notifications on. But more info on that Patreon, which you can find a link in the description and for that and the Twitter there. But a lot going on there this year. You got Junior score predictions. I do my score predictions here on the channel. Junior has his every week on the Patreon. I have my locks of the week. We hit barely on the over of last night's game by 0.5, but that was one of the locks of the week. I do my top 25 college football score predictions every week. I'll have updated playoff predictions that pop up, as soon as we get to, a few weeks down the road here, and we'll keep updating those. Extra content videos that we'll throw on there along the way, and we have Discord access, which is a lot of good football conversations going on there, so check it out. It'd be much appreciated. Link in the description for anything you may need there. But obviously the final score of last night's game was 34 to the Chiefs, 20 to the Texans. I predicted 34-31, so I was exactly around the Chiefs' score there, not so much on the Texans. I thought it'd be a closer battle. The main reason I thought the Texans had a shot in this game, and why it'd be close is because the Chiefs, a weak spot in their team, not too many weak spots, very dominant team, Super Bowl favorites again for a reason, but a weaker spot was kind of the cornerback position. And on top of that, a guy like Bashaud Breeland was out. So I thought the Texans would kind of attack that. And the young corners, young secondary of the Kansas City Chiefs really stepped up better than I expected, along with the Texans really not taking some shots there. So that confused me down the sideline, that is. But to kind of go into why I predicted the Texans to score more points, that would be it. But let's start from the beginning here. Texans get the ball first, and we have a great back shoulder throw from Deshaun Watson. Will Fuller actually drops the ball. And Will Fuller ended up having a pretty solid game, I'd say. Pretty much carried the receiver unit there, which was very sloppy overall for the Texans. But that was a rough start because that killed some momentum. That could have led to them scoring, and it could be a whole different – I'm not saying they would have won the game, but it could be a whole different ball games. Usually you tend to see something like that. Every game we can go back, well, if this didn't happen or if this went their way, it could have been a whole different ball game. That was kind of that moment, I thought. And again, it doesn't really mean the Texans would have won. Chiefs were absolutely dominant in this game. But yeah, that was something. So that slowed them down a little bit. Once third down came up, Frank Clark got a outstanding pressure on that play. And that's something that you almost kind of dislike about football at the same time is plays like that, players like that won't really show up on the stat sheet, and there's always those people that are so focused on how many sacks people get and or didn't get, and that kind of creates their judgment. So that's kind of the thing that you can love and hate about football. You can appreciate good play like Frank Clark getting that pressure, such a crucial moment too. I know it's early in the game, but it's that first third down, and that was kind of the difference of possibly the Texans get something going to them not being able to, and the Chiefs getting the ball back. So, yeah, Frank Clark, and you see it listed there, the key, the positives, the negatives here, the main takeaways. I thought that was a big one. Chris Jones, Frank Clark, they are disruptors. They disrupted the plays. The quarterback, Deshaun Watson, threw him off his game a little bit, and that was the difference. I thought that, waking up this morning trying to figure out the obvious was, there was obvious points, people that played good, units that played well, didn't play well. It was obvious the Chiefs were just a much better team last night, and they just outplayed them. But specifically, I'm thinking, what was the major difference the major difference, and I think it's quite clear, and it's actually two separate things that kind of make, kind of come together a little bit. And it starts with, guys like Chris Jones, who's a dominant, elite interior defensive lineman, reason he got the money, and Frank Clark, their pass rusher, getting that pressure and disrupted and caused the offensive line of the Texans in pass protection to kind of look bad and caused Deshaun Watson to have a tougher task than it wanted to be. And then versus the Texans, the Texans didn't really get pressure. They didn't when they were on defense. They didn't really get after Mahomes. It was very underwhelming. So the difference of pressure and just pass rush ability was a major difference. But the other thing kind of going into that was play calling and play designs, I thought there, which was great for the Chiefs. And it wasn't necessarily bad for the Texans. Again, the lack of urgency and the lack of shots down the sideline, which I thought was going to be, it made so much sense that was going to be a big part of the game plan for the Texans, just wasn't. And kind of going back to the Chiefs, quick play calls, beautiful play designs. My favorite one, middle of the game, I think it looked like, it was a faked pass to the right, and then you see Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's a great receiving back, slipping out to the left. It looked like a designed slip screen to the left. Mahomes looks his way and then gets it to Kelsey, who in the middle of the field, who was dominant, like we always expect in the middle of the field. One of those things where you expect it, but you can't stop it. Plays like that, just so perfectly designed, so unique. Why that coaching staff is so great. Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy, who I think, I'll say it now, I think he should be the first coach taken kind of off the board as a head coach this offseason. I'm going to say he actually will be. But yeah, quick plays, great play designs, and that kind of goes back in to the pass rush difference. The Texans pass rush, it was poor. It was underwhelming. It was disappointing, and that's a huge impact part, an important part of the game, obviously. But the Chiefs' play designs and how quick they were didn't really allow the Texans' pass rush to even get a chance. Like, there wasn't any plays that were, very long developed or, kept Mahomes sitting there forever. So guys like Watt, merciless. We saw Jacob Martin rack up the first sack of the game. They didn't really have too many chances to go get after him. They were a little underwhelming at the same time, but you can't say they played bad because there wasn't too many chances. And that is crazy when you allow your opponent to not really get a chance to getting after your quarterback. And that goes to a lot of credit to that coaching staff, Patrick Mahomes, along with that, recognizing the defense and whatnot there. But that was my major takeaway. What the major difference was a big part of the game. The pass rush differences, and that kind of went into the play calling and play design. So that was the major difference. But yeah, kind of recapping the rest of the game, and then we saw the Chiefs I mentioned Will Fuller had that major drop. Then we see Demarcus Robinson have that major drop. So both teams kind of had that major drop to, look like it might have been a defensive game for just a second there. And then David Johnson got going. I've been saying all offseason I'm excited for David Johnson for this Texans team. I think it'll be better than people expect. Good start for him. The Chiefs' run defense actually started off, and that's the only negative I have for them, actually started off on the weaker side there. There was some pretty wide open holes, and the angles were pretty poor. And I'm thinking to myself, did they clean that up the rest of the game, or was it because the Texans were just playing from behind that they couldn't run the ball as much? That's kind of the question we all can ask ourselves there. The Chiefs defense did really pick it up. Did feel like it was getting better and better. Knocked the rust off. Some new guys in there. Another year. It's only the second year in the 4-3 under Spagnuolo. So they definitely started to pick it up. They played a great game. Run defense scared me a little early, and I think the only reason it wasn't scary late is because the Texans were playing from behind, and they couldn't really run the ball because it would run the clock, obviously. So that brings up maybe the only way to beat this dominant team of the Kansas City Chiefs, maybe the best team in football. They definitely have to be right now, even though it's only one game, but the defending Super Bowl champs there, is to... You got to get specific here, and it's easier said than done, but I would like a team that can run the ball pretty well, but start with the ball and run it down their throats. And you have to, the main thing here is you have to keep the lead. You have to stay in the game, because as soon as you get behind, you got to play keep up. You don't want to play keep up with the Chiefs in general, but you can't really run the ball anymore if that's your game. So there's teams that can do it out there. There's teams that can match up well. The key is starting off in the lead. Texans did it, but kind of keeping that going there. And yeah, I blame the play decisions a little bit and why they couldn't keep going. Maybe they relied on the run a little too much or relied on small ball a little too much. Really no shots down the sideline. The lack of urgency really, and the lack of shots down the sideline really disappointed me. But at times you can see maybe they did one. There's unknown moments where maybe they did want to do that, but Watson was kind of getting rushed instantly or nobody was open. So the poor play by the receivers, I suppose, really prevented that. So you can't fully judge. You can't fully judge there, Bill O'Brien, but I would like just more 3-step drop. You have the speed and just take a shot. The guy can be covered still for you to take that shot. So, Watson had some really good balls he was kind of let down by his receivers. He did have some throws I think you would like back though. The instant pressure that caused the interception, that was actually Tyrann Mathieu. Credit to him for the interception. L'Jarius Sneed, the rookie, comes up with the pick. But yeah, they ended up scoring on that drive. It was kind of the game was over at the time, but Will Fuller had a walk-in touchdown. He severely underthrew him. There was one early where Sneed had a breakup on, if he got that ball to the sideline rather than, 5 yards inside the sideline, it would have been a big play, a completion if the receiver would have caught the ball. So just little plays like that. Watson wasn't the reason they lost or anything at all. But yeah, little things like that. So Watson needs to play better. Really, everybody needs to play better for the Texans. But yeah, I usually kind of go down and go step by step and recap the game, but there was really nothing. There was some great plays I mentioned with the Chiefs. It was pretty much straightforward. The Chiefs were just outplaying them, but some takeaways here. The Texans, I thought David Johnson looked solid. The run blocking, actually, the pass protection was kind of a mess, but the run blocking looked pretty solid. A second-year guy that didn't get full reps, full snaps last year, Titus Howard, really struggled in pass protection, but I thought he was pretty good in run blocking, which really isn't a surprise because that was kind of my evaluation out of college for him. Pretty mean, nasty run blocker for a tackle. Definitely struggled in pass protection too. Looked a little slow, couldn't really keep up with guys like Frank Clark, but he'll get better. But yeah, David Johnson run blocking looked pretty good. Goal line defense looked good. For the Texans, when it was obvious run situation. Yeah, I don't know if it was just the goal line defense did look good, but it seemed like it almost goes credit to the Chiefs because when the Chiefs were able to run pretty darn well, it was because it was unpredictable moments, which say it all the time. That's my key to calling an offense, for an offense in general, be unpredictable. That will make a great offense. And I think having the amount of playmakers they have and having that Mahomes as a quarterback creates that. But they were able to run when you just really don't know. Like, it's spreading the field out. We really don't know. Defense is a guessing game for the most part. We don't really know if they're going to run or whatnot, and that opened things up for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who was outstanding in his debut there. And then they were able to stop them when it was very obvious running situations. So, they did look pretty good there. PJ Hall was actually stepping up, a guy that you kind of least expected. Wish you see a guy like Blacklock a little more. Was excited to see him. Excited to see a lot of those young guys step up. Didn't really see it. Nobody that noticeable for the Texans besides David Johnson in this game, really. But yeah, that's a positive, I guess. Short yards defense. Missed DeAndre Hopkins. That seems to be the main talk here. Is that they traded DeAndre Hopkins. I can't believe that they traded DeAndre Hopkins. And people make it seem like that was the reason they lost this game. It wasn't. They did really miss DeAndre Hopkins in this game, though. It looked like the receivers played pretty poor. But it's not the reason they lost. The Chiefs were just a much better team. They outplayed them. Again, the play calling and the pressure were the main points there. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire really took off in this game. Those were the main situations. They missed DeAndre Hopkins in this game. It's one of those overreactions where, you could be right. You could say that you could predict that they'll miss DeAndre Hopkins all year, and it could bite them, come back to bite them, and you could be right. But if you're going to say that now like it's a fact, I'd say, slow your roll a little bit maybe. Let's let Brandon Cooks get to 100%. Remember, he wasn't 100% in this game. As reported before the game, he was questionable. Will Fuller's had some injuries in the past. I thought besides the drop early, I thought he played pretty well, but it did start to downpour as well. But let this unit kind of come together, get firing on all cylinders here, click together, develop together. Let's let Cooks get 100%, and then we can judge. They missed Hopkins in this game because those situations where, maybe Watson didn't feel comfortable kind of throwing to somebody that was actually covered. He didn't have full trust at times. We kind of talked about that, where maybe they did want to take more shots, but they were just unable to do so. So in that way, they missed Hopkins. There were some drops as well. But you can't blame the game on that. You can't blame the game on that. And you also can't justify the trade still, even though David Johnson did look good. So that's kind of the bright side. David Johnson was really the one player for the Texans that I could say, yeah, that looks great. I'm not worried about Deshaun Watson at all. I'm not worried about Will Fuller, maybe the health, but Will Fuller at all. I'm not worried about guys like Laramie Tunsil. I think Titus Howard will get better. That's the other thing. Offensive line, it was always a concern for the Texans. Pass protection was a mess. You see the lack of. I hate when people say, the other team just wanted it more. I can't stand that usually, but it almost felt like that. You look at the offensive line, look like low. You look at the Texans in general, looks like low energy. For the most part, nothing really standing out or going for them. The offensive line, some guys were giving up on plays, so I didn't like that at all. That was a big reason too. And I usually hate when people say that and blame that on the game. That's not the main situation here, why they lost, but that is something I actually noticed. But I'm not saying they weren't trying, obviously. But yeah, I noticed that in the pass protection a lot. It was pretty brutal. They were allowing a lot of pressure. And I talked about the Texans' lack of getting pressure as well and allowing the Chiefs to get pressure. That was pretty key. But back to the pass protection, this is a fairly new unit, and it's finally coming together. Yeah, there's some spots where they can get better, but you look at Laramie Tunsil's fairly new to the Texans still. Titus Howard, second-year guy, didn't play every snap this year. Max Sharping was new last year, and they moved him to guard. So, and those other guys weren't really used to, you're as good as your unit. You got to play together. So, it'll get better as season goes on. It played a little worse than I thought it actually would in this game. So that was a little underwhelming, a little disappointing. But they'll grow together. They'll get better as the season goes on, which could help Deshaun Watson play better. So if you're overreacting from that, I'd say slow your roll a little bit. But in the back of your mind, it's something you definitely want to monitor. I think it's definitely something you're maybe a little concerned about, but I wouldn't overreact too much. It's not going to be a great offensive line, but I don't really expect it to be this bad every single week. They'll play some good pass rushes coming up. They'll play the Steelers, I think, in week 3. They'll play the Vikings in week 4. So those are games they could struggle again because it's early in the year. But it should get better as a unit, develop together as the season goes on because it's still a fairly new unit, but it was rough in this game. And I talked about it throughout this whole episode. The lack of urgency in shots. Again, they may have wanted to take more shots than we realize. Watson was getting pressured too fast, had to kind of scramble, had to bounce around a bit. Maybe they weren't open, and he kind of feared that they would drop the ball again or it could get tipped and picked. I don't really know for sure. But at the end of the day, there was a lack of shots. I'm talking, sometimes you got to give a 3-step drop and just unleash the ball down the sideline. And I'm disappointed at the lack of that. So we can blame that a little bit on the game plan, a little bit on the play calling, a little bit on, Deshaun Watson maybe was a little hesitant to do it. You can't blame him fully, but that's something that I was a little disappointed in, and a reason they couldn't get things going because, like I said, the run game was great, but it's the Chiefs. You're going to have to play keep up with the Chiefs. Even when you're up, it feels like you're going to play keep up with the Chiefs. So taking those shots at those points, maybe they were a little conservative. I've seen much, much worse, but maybe there, maybe, but positive things again, run game, run blocking looked good. Duke Johnson, I would say. David Johnson looked good. Duke Johnson, and he got hurt, unfortunate, and we didn't get to see a lot of him. I thought there was some hesitation in this game. I thought he was hesitating before hitting holes. It's something minor that I just noticed. David Johnson, as expected, much, 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 much better. So those are my takeaways from the Texans there. Looking at their schedule, it's a little. You worry a little bit. You got Ravens, you got Steelers, you got Vikings. It's a little tough. I'm not saying they're gonna lose all those games. A little tough, but I'm not really. Again, I think don't overreact about the Hopkins thing. Don't overreact about the pass protection in a way of there. Yeah, again, back your mind. You could be concerned a little bit. but it should. That's the major word there. Key word. Should develop and get better as season goes on. We will see, though. You don't want to start disastrous and then everyone's kind of down. And, I don't think the Texans will get like that, but that's just something to look out for, though. Excited to see David Johnson getting back going there. They did play the best team in football as of now, and week 1 in Arrowhead knocked some rust off. So let's everyone calm down a little bit. But I did expect to be a little closer. Chiefs, we talked about it. This was the major. I actually think the first two really you would think have nothing to do with each other, but they kind of did in this game, and those were the major differences. The headline is rookie Clyde Edwards-Helaire was dominant, and that could be the headline for sure. And you guys know I love Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He was my number 1 running back in the class, and he was dominant. But I think the main headlines here, the main reason the Chiefs won, guys like Chris Jones and Frank Clark were the absolute disruptors. It may not show up on the stat sheets. I think Chris Jones had about 6 pressures. In today's day, people are starting to realize pressure, unlike 5-10 years ago. It's more than about the sacks, and some people are starting to realize that. The disruptors here really made it hard. And we see how important, Pat, I talked about it during the draft season on where I value each position. I value pass rush over any type of pass rush over any other defensive player, type of position there. And I talked about that I constantly during the draft season. Is because you see how much of a game changer just pressure. You don't have to get a sack. Pressure is, whether it's from the interior with Chris Jones, whether it's from the outside on the edge with Frank Clark. And really, they only have 2 of those guys. That's how it's that impressive. Derek Notty's pretty solid stop and run. They have other guys that can play, don't get me wrong, but they got 2 solid guys that disrupted the whole game, and that gives other teams hope. Other teams hope. And, in my head, that kind of brought out, maybe the Colts can get something going, actually, because they got Houston, they added Buckner to that. It's really just 2 guys carrying the load there. But they got Darius Leonard behind that. We're getting off track here. But teams like that, maybe you give your team some hope. Those guys can be the game changers. But yeah, these guys were the disruptors. They made the job a lot harder for Deshaun Watson here, and that makes the job harder for everybody. It makes the job harder for everybody, and it completely changed the game plan in your head, how you think the game is going to go. They're disruptors, and that is. You look at quarterback, you look at the guys that are protecting the quarterback, and you look at the guys that get pressured, the disruptors, the most important players in football. And you see how important these types of players are. You see why Chris Jones gets the mega contract as he should. You see why Frank Clark was traded for last year as they should have. Big-time players. They won't light up the stat sheets, but in my head they do. I won't forget that. Hopefully you guys don't forget that. There's a big-time players there. Big-time game for them. It felt like they showed up, Frank Clark specifically, it felt like there was I think there was 2, it's only 2, but it was 2 times on crucial third downs, the one on the first drive where he got that pressure that forced the bad play of the incompletion. Those were major plays. Those are game, the game could turn around because of those plays. I think that goes unnoticed. Chris Jones just driving back his opponent, creating pressure, would even getting by his opponent, but sometimes without even. It's just so impressive. And that kind of went into the play calling, play designs on the other side, kind of not allowing the Texans to get pressure. Let's win the pressure game. How do we do that? Let our guys go to work because we got some studs out there that we drafted and then we traded for, and let's eliminate their big-time player, J.J. Watt, Whitney Merciless. Let's eliminate them. Quick plays. Let's throw them off. Let's be unpredictable. Genius. Beautiful. You wonder why these guys are the best in football, these players and their coaching staff. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was phenomenal. My takeaway from Clyde Edwards-Helaire is it was part of his game, a big part of his game, especially in the pre-draft process here, looking at LSU, was his receiving abilities, not just out of the backfield, but he is a fantastic route runner downfield if he's running from the backfield or lining up in the slot. Absolutely fantastic. There's a reason why Joe Burrow has said that's the best player he's ever played with. And my takeaway, the Chiefs did not even use him in the passing game. They didn't really have to. And this guy made a statement. This guy let the world know who he is. Those people that said he wasn't the best running back in the class. And I'm excited to see some of these other guys. We still got to see some of these other rookie running backs. Underrated class, by the way, in my opinion. But he put the world on notice without even showing a huge part of his game. And that's crazy. That's crazy. And that kind of goes in the Chiefs, too. The Chiefs are that good where they can kind of save that. Mahomes didn't need to use Mahomes too much. We seen some crazy throws. But they didn't really need to we didn't really need to see the full Mahomes. We didn't need to see the full Edwards-Helaire. We didn't need to see the full Tyreek Hill. And that kind of goes unnoticed too. Hill is kind of the distractor out there. The focus is kind of on him, and sometimes that goes unnoticed. It felt like we didn't even see the full Chiefs, and they just dominated, I think, a good football team. They had some rust, but a good football team here in the Texans, and that shows how good the Chiefs are, really. But a dominant game for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I've talked about it, a million times in the past. The top, it shouldn't even be mine. It should be everyone's top traits for a running back is vision and burst. You need to see the hole, and you need to hit the hole fast without hesitation, and that's what I loved about, we got the receiving ability is the bonus. That's what I loved about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and you saw that last night. I was talking about it during the game on Twitter, and even in the post game, the first thing Patrick Mahomes said about Clyde Edwards-Helaire is his vision is crazy. Something along those lines, crazy vision, and that's exactly what it is. And then you see the cuts that he has, the vision after the fact, after the hole, and the ability he has. The only knock on Edwards-Helaire was his downfield speed. He has plenty of burst and quickness, maybe just as much as any running back in the NFL. The deep speed, and it really wasn't a factor just because how good his vision and his legs are and his abilities are. And he's only 21. He'll actually get faster too. Guys tend to get faster as they get old, as they become men there too. So it's just so impressive, Edwards-Helaire. I was very happy about that. I was somebody that hyped up Edwards-Helaire for some time now, so I was very excited about that. And L'Jarius Sneed, who actually made my way on the secret impact players, the secret weapons video a couple weeks ago, in a guy that was a safety at Louisiana Tech, but I graded all offseason as a corner, and you love to see it. He starts at corner week 1 for the Chiefs, and you see the length, you see his speed show up here, and why he's got a future at corner. Excellent game for him, locking it down, got an interception. I credit Tyrann Mathieu mainly for that one. In Spagnuolo for calling that blitz, and that defense in general. But you love to see Sneed playing that well. The guy's got a bright future, and Breeland could come back and maybe he can lose some time. See Ward's a little beat up, so maybe not. But maybe Sneed could lose some reps, and that's okay. Again, switching from safety to corner, could get a lot of potential. He's got a bright future. He's going to be very good in the long run here. So very impressed with him as well. Was a little disappointed to see. You can't be too disappointed because they played great, but a little lack of seeing Willie Gay Jr. there. But that's another kind of raw prospect, a lot of upside. So I'm sure we'll see more of him there for the Chiefs. Early run, we talked about this pretty much already. Early run defense looked a little, maybe it was rust. Some wide open holes though, and then some bad angles, and they kind of cleaned it up. But you kind of question that. Did they really? The Texans kind of had to play from behind. They had to pass more, and then it created obvious passing situations. It created obvious passing situations. When it's obvious, it's a lot easier on the defense. So that's what you can't let happen if you're the Texans. You're any team, and that kind of goes into staying in games and being unpredictable with the offense. But yeah, it's something that you could look at going forward here. The teams that are pretty dominant running the ball, those teams, if they can take a lead, keep a lead, that could be something that could beat the Chiefs. But again, absolute dominant performance, absolute dominant team here, the best team in football as we sit right now. I don't think we even got I talked about it. I don't think we even got the full dose of the Kansas City Chiefs. And you just see how well built this team is, the amount of playmakers they get, how spread out the field is, and how that kind of creates unpredictability there in their play design, everything about this team, so well built, so impressive. So that's my takeaways. Again, I'm not overreacting too much to the Texans. Still a good team, a little rusty, some things they got to get going here. I mentioned some disappointing things that I hope they can fix, but I wouldn't overreact too much there at all. It's only 1 week, but you do worry about the teams that they got coming up. But every week is different. It's only week 1 here, and they had a tough task. So excited to watch everybody. I was going to say excited to watch these two teams the rest of the way, but only 1 game down. Sunday is the best day for NFL, for football, and we get our first one coming up this week, and we got 2 games on Monday night. We'll recap those Sunday games on Monday. We'll have Overreaction Monday. We're going to have all kinds of videos. Our weekly picks. I do score predictions. Junior has his score predictions on the Patreon. I do power rankings update every single week. We got some hot takes of the week. We're always adding new videos like that, keeping you guys involved. If you don't follow the Twitter, you missed out last night constantly, and you're going to miss out on Sunday too. Constantly giving you my thoughts. So you're going to want to follow that. There'll be a link in the description comments for that. But if you enjoyed the video, please smash that like button. It'd be much appreciated. Please subscribe. Turn notifications on. Cannot wait for Sunday. Cannot wait to cover the NFL this year. We're just getting started. Hopefully you can join us. That's going to do it, though, for this one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.